Hey there, and welcome back to Recap Mania. In today's video, I'm going to explain the movie Girl in the Basement. This movie is inspired by a true story, where a father imprisoned his daughter underneath his house for many years. The movie begins in a short frenzy. A young girl named Marie is gasping for air in the arms of her frantic mother, Sarah. They're being driven to the hospital by a man named Don. Sarah is panicking and urging Don to get them to the hospital as soon as possible. Soon they arrive at the hospital. However, as they give an unconscious Marie to the doctors, Don specifically instructs Sarah not to utter a single word. Sarah is forced to watch helplessly as they try to resuscitate her daughter. And as we see the heart monitor flatlining, the story goes back 20 years to a family dinner. It's now revealed that Don is Sarah's father. Sarah, her sister, Amy, her mother, Renee, and Don are having dinner together. But the mood of the table changes quickly as Sarah insists on wanting to go to a party. Apparently, she had asked Renee for permission 2 weeks ago. Despite this, Don refuses to let her go. Instead, he sends Sarah to her room. Ever the rebel, Sarah sneaks out of her window that night to meet up with Chris, her boyfriend. As they scoot off and have the night of their lives, they're unaware that their parents have discovered that she's gone. This isn't gonna be good. The next day, Don confronts Sarah when he returns home in the morning. Frustrated and angry, Sarah lets Don know that the moment she turns 18, she's out of there for good. In response, Don lets her know that as long as she's in his house, she's gonna respect his rules. The contempt is palpable. Sarah is then seen talking to Amy and her mom, telling them how she wishes to explore the country after she leaves Florida. Don overhears his conversation and goes to the basement of the house, where the existence of a secret room behind the bookshelf is revealed. 3 months later, Sarah graduated, almost time for her to go. It's here that we see Sarah and Renee talking about how Don has been spending too much time in the basement lately. Renee then leaves for the store, and Sarah's left alone in the house with Don. He uses this chance to trick Sarah into the basement. Once she's down there, he locks her in a secret bunker in the basement. She panics and tries to scream, but nobody can hear her, since this bunker is soundproof. Later that night, he lets the rest of his family believe that she might have run away. After a long day in the basement, Sarah tries to escape when Don returns. Unfortunately, she can't escape. It's nearly impossible to escape. The lock code at the door is designed to kill the power after 3 failed tries, and he changes it every day. This is the result of her rebellious ways. Don informs her of how her captivity will go. Starting now, she'll have to earn everything, even air. And before he leaves, he takes advantage of his daughter, doing the unthinkable to her. Following the disgusting assault, Don joins the cop interview with the worried Renee and Amy. He tells the police about her plans to travel across the country. Although her mother insists that Sarah would never run away without telling her, the police tell her not to worry. She's run away before and come back. This is probably the same thing. They are all unable to hear Sarah from the soundproof basement. In the next scene, a battered and bruised Sarah reminisces about Chris. They couldn't wait to travel the world together. Distraught, she remembers the times he serenaded her. The next day, Chris actually comes over to ask about Sarah. Unfortunately, Don lies to him by telling him that Sarah left with Steve, her best friend from the old neighborhood. Heartbroken, Chris leaves with a gift he had for Sarah. 3 weeks later, Don returns to the bunker with a cake for Sarah. She's now 18. He also makes her wear a red dress. Feeling benevolent, he asks her to make a request for her birthday. After rejecting her plea for freedom and a TV, he concedes to getting her a clock, but only if she earns it. In the next scene, Sarah makes a weapon with a can top. Later on, when Don arrives, she attacks him with it. Unfortunately, she's too weak. Livid about her rebellious nature, he assaults her yet again. 1 year later, a pregnant Sarah gives birth to Marie alone. What a predicament. Later on, Don meets his daughter and granddaughter and tells Sarah she should be grateful for the gift of motherhood. What a life. 4 years later, a distraught Renee is still unaware that her daughter is just underneath her. There, Don visits pregnant Sarah and Marie so that he can celebrate a promotion. Sarah begs him to let them go, but Don refuses to before storming off. Upstairs, he's also upset with Renee when she asks him to hire a private investigator. Renee insists she'll never give up on their daughter. Angry, Don storms off yet again. However, in the next scene, he gets Sarah and Marie a TV. This will make them happy for a while. In the 7th year, Sarah nurses an asthmatic Marie while her son Michael plays in the corner. She's annoyed when Dawn brings adult drugs for her. However, Marie gets better, so Sarah tells her a fairy tale about an evil father who locked his fairy princess daughter underground just like her. Meanwhile, Amy runs into Chris, who reveals the lie Dawn told him. Amy then reveals that she's suspicious about Dawn's role in her sister's disappearance. Meanwhile, the kids in the bunker get restless because they want to go outside. Sarah is forced to play make-believe with them. Poor kids. Later on, Amy and Renee confront Dawn about lying to Chris and his role in Sarah's disappearance. Enraged, Renee declares she's going to get a job so that she can find her daughter herself before storming off. As Dawn chases after her, Amy finds his keys to the basement and heads downstairs. Before she can find the secret entrance, Dawn chases her off. They're all unaware that Sarah has gone into labor down there. Sarah names the new baby Thomas before begging Dawn to take him up. There's no room for him there. The next day, Dawn lets Renee find Thomas at their doorstep and a note from Sarah asking her to take care of the baby. Unfortunately, Dawn finds her other note asking for help. He returns to the bunker to punish her. Time goes by and the kids are teenagers. This makes Sarah worried because she feels that Dawn is looking at Marie in a weird way. Later on, she consoles Marie, who's tired of being locked in the basement. Sarah promises that one day she'll get them out of there. She doesn't reveal that Dawn is both of their fathers. 17 years in, a teenage Thomas finds a distraught Renee in Sarah's room, while Sarah and the kids discover a leak in the bunker ceiling. As Renee tells Thomas about his mother, Sarah digs a hole through the wet ceiling. Sarah tries to use a light to catch a neighbor's attention through the hole, but the man tells Dawn about the signal. Enraged, he attacks a pregnant Sarah. This makes her give birth to a stillborn child. Understandably, Sarah is distraught and even more depressed. The next year, Dawn visits the family in the basement. He chews Sarah out for being so miserable instead of being grateful. He boasts about Thomas, who's big and strong. Enraged, the other kids demand to go upstairs, but Dawn insists that it depends on their mother. Later that night, the kids blame her for being down there. Frustrated, Sarah has a breakdown. Remorseful, the kids clean up before apologizing to Sarah. Following this, Sarah reveals the truth to them. Just like in the story of the fairy princess, Dawn is their father and her father. Understandably, the kids go manic. Later on, as Dawn disrespects Sarah, Michael stands up for her and tries to fight him. Angry, Dawn leaves them in the darkness. Sometime later, Dawn gets fired and is about to lose the house. He tries to take the easy way out by killing himself, but Thomas finds him before he can finish himself off. Somehow, he's the old man's only solace. Sometime later, as Dawn and the family upstairs have a barbecue following Thomas's baseball game, Marie has an asthma attack. Later that night, Dawn arrives and sees the situation. Although he's afraid she'll squeal in the hospital, Sarah convinces him to take them to the hospital. So, we're back to where we started. As the doctors deal with Marie, a nurse named Diane asks Dawn and Sarah for Marie's medical history. Dawn speaks with them while Sarah takes everything in. However, after Diane leaves, Sarah spills some water, which gives her some space from Dawn. Immediately, she heads over to Diane and the police, who finally apprehend this monster. Now, Sarah and the kids are free. In the final scenes, Marie, Michael, and Thomas play in the year as Sarah, Amy, and Renee watch on. Moments later, Chris joins them. Now reunited, he apologizes for not looking for her properly. Chris gives Sarah the gift he had kept for her, a helmet she'd wear as they travel the country. Together, they ride off into the horizon. So, with that, this movie recap episode has come to an end. Let us know if you are intrigued to watch the movie after seeing our recap in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon for more recaps. Till then, goodbye.